3 minutes after 10 is the time. Let's begin with James Cleverly. Oh, Lord. Foreign Secretary, I think, at the time of broadcasting. And we are, of course, live. Good morning, by the way. I hope you had a splendid weekend. This is James Cleverly at 2 minutes to 2 on the 23rd of October, or yesterday, as it's known technically. The last few weeks show that being Prime Minister is tough and no other job in government is quite like it. I know Boris has learned lessons from his time in Number 10 and will ensure the focus is on the needs of the country from day one. I will be supporting him to return to the role of PM. So that, give or take a couple of minutes, was at 2 p.m. yesterday. Here he is, the same bloke, at 8:05 this morning. So just knock off 8 minutes, just for the ease of calculation. 2 p.m, 10 hours, 18 hours later. Here's James Cleverly. We face great challenges at home and abroad. I said we needed experience at the top of government, and I stand... Sorry. We face great challenges at home and abroad. I said we needed experience at the top of government, and I stand by that. I don't know why I sound like I'm hosting Blankety Blank at the moment. I watched it for the first time in a while at the weekend. Bradley Walsh in the chair these days. It's a cracking show. A timeless classic. We face great challenges at home and abroad. I said we needed experience at the top of government, and I stand by that. The candidate with the most experience is clearly blank. Who are you going to choose? Keith. Oh, Lord. The candidate with the most experience is clearly Rishi Sunak. He can count on my full support as our PM, and I will be voting for him. Rewind 18 hours. The last few weeks show that being PM is tough, and no other job in government is quite like it. I know blank has learned lessons from his time in Number 10 and will ensure the focus is on the needs of the country from day one. I will be supporting him to return to the role of PM. 18 hours later, he's back to Rishi Sunak. I mean, what do you do? What do I do on a day like today? And he's not the only one. Seriously. You may say he's a dreamer, but he's not the only one. Nadeem Zahawi, arguably, has been even more embarrassing in the context of these ridiculous swings. Jacob Rees-Mogg, let's have a look at Jacob Rees-Mogg at about 5 to 10 yesterday morning. Ready? He's clearly going to stand. The people who are doing the numbers for Boris's campaign tell me he has the numbers. Jacob Rees-Mogg there demonstrating the intellectual acumen and grasp of the facts, natural talent that have propelled him to one of the highest offices in the land. Just have a little look at that. Boris Johnson, whether you love him or loathe him, we can all agree he is one of the biggest liars ever to pollute the public space in this country. And I say whether you love him or loathe him, we can all agree with some confidence. Because if, of course, you love him, one of the things you love about him is that his lies annoy the people who loathe him. So you've ended up being not just an apologist for a liar, but an actual cheerleader for a liar. But don't be embarrassed. Some of the best-known journalists in the land are on exactly the same bandwagon as you, or at least they were, until the wheels fell off yesterday evening. Because it turned out that he has all of the necessary nominations, but not necessarily in the right. I can't stop picking up 1970s and 1980s reference points. Sorry, wrong plate. So he's got all the nominations, but they go to a different school. Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, national television yesterday, they've told me that he's got... Boris Johnson has told me something that I'm now going to repeat publicly, because if Boris Johnson has told him it must be true. How many people have publicly stated something or believed an assurance of Boris Johnson only to discover mere nanoseconds later that Boris Johnson was talking out of his well-upholstered backside? It's unbelievable what he's done to this country, isn't it? And again, don't feel bad if you were part of it, because many of the most powerful journalists and editors and newspaper owners in the country have assumed almost... I mean, sometimes it reads like erotic literature, the way they talk about Boris. Listen to this on the front page of the Daily Mail today. For the good of the party and the country, Mr. Johnson... Actually, no, I should use an erotic literature voice. You ready for this? For the good of the party and the country, Mr. Johnson set his dream aside. This is a gesture of wisdom, honour and statesmanship. His time will come again. That's the Daily Mail talking about Boris Johnson today, Monday, October the 24th, 2022. For the good of the party and the country, Mr. Johnson set his dream aside. This is a gesture of wisdom, honour and statesmanship. His time will come again. These people are completely crackers. Whether they are debasing themselves on a scale never seen before in British politics, like James Cleverly and Nadeem Zahawi and Nadine Dorries and Jacob Rees-Mogg and all the rest of them. I wonder what they all have in common. Or they are essentially traducing centuries of journalistic tradition in this country by turning into a sort of Mills and Boon for Boris Johnson, while pretending that they have some sort of ideological or political foundation for their fetishisation of this ridiculous man. It is, frankly, staggering. 9 minutes after 10 is the time. So you've got the... I mean, it's not even a U-turn. I don't even know what the words are. It's Groucho Marx, isn't it? I got principles, and if you don't like them, well, I got others. That's James Cleverly this morning and Nadeem Zahawi. Here's one. Here's possibly my favourite. Sir Robert Buckland. The knighthoods and the peerages that have been dished out by the last couple of prime ministers are truly the grimmest legacy of their administrations. Some of the least... No, it wasn't my sexy voice. I decided not to do my sexy voice, all right? So stop sending me rude texts. The peerages and the knighthoods, it's breathtaking. The paucity of talent, the absence of integrity, the absolute bin juice that has been promoted into the House of Lords or given a knighthood by the last two or three prime ministers. Here's Sir Robert Buckland, currently the Secretary of State for Wales. He has endorsed Rishi Sunak. Now, have a little pause on this. In the summer, Robert Buckland endorsed Rishi Sunak and then switched to Liz Truss halfway through the campaign. And now he's come out once again and endorsed Rishi Sunak. I believe his nickname in the cabinet is Yozza Hughes. Actually, that probably needs a little bit more explanation for younger listeners or blank-faced studio engineers like Keith. Giz a job. I can do that. Giz a job. I can do that. Giz a job. Robert Giz a job Buckland there. And again, they're queuing up to debase and humiliate themselves. I hope someone reminds Jacob Rees-Mogg that he said... Colin, beg your pardon. Please never do that voice again. All right, I promise I'll never do that voice again. Queuing up to debase himself. Jacob Rees-Mogg should be reminded that he said he would never serve in the socialist Rishi Sunak's cabinet. I didn't know where we were going to go this morning, but in many ways it's a sort of pick and mix of political imbecility. Wherever you turn, you are reminded of the absolute idiocy of the clowns who've been driving this country for the last 6 years. And it doesn't end when Rishi Sunak gets the nod, as he probably will do later today. He's not going to be the one to finally admit the truth and begin to recognise the reality of Brexit. There was a massive Tory donor on the radio this morning, a chap called Guy Hands. Look him up. And finally, even on a network that has been trying to pretend that Brexit is all over and done with and that there's no need to return to it. I said to you a few months ago that eventually they'd start pretending or claiming that, we don't need to talk about it anymore. Well, that's just not going to wash, is it? Given that all of the economic damage we're suffering has been massively magnified and exacerbated by the ludicrous decision to become the first country in the history of the world to impose economic sanctions on itself. But Rishi Sunak, Theo Usherwood told me on Friday, I don't know if you missed this, you might want to sit down. Rishi Sunak was writing articles about why we should leave the European Union when he was still at school. So James Duddridge is probably the chap who gets the title for the most ridiculous knighthood and indeed the most pathetic performance over the last 24 hours in the context of British politics. But my God, there's a lot of competition. And here's the point, of course. If you have a concept of or a capacity for shame and embarrassment, then like me, you can't quite believe what you're seeing today, right? Nadeem Zahawi, without pausing, just jumps from one horse to another. Let's run through, if we can remember, the chronology of Nadeem Zahawi's public relationship with Boris Johnson. Can we see how it goes? So let's start with being a loyal cabinet minister and then announcing that he's got to go. Have we got the order wrong on this? And then accepting a job as Chancellor. And then 2 days later saying, actually, you should resign. and then announcing that you're backing him again for Prime Minister, and then announcing, actually, no, you're backing Rishi Sunak after all because the wheels have just come off Boris Johnson's clown car yet again. That's Nadeem Zahawi's political career since June, or maybe May, at a push. So think about that. These are the people in power. These are the people in charge. This is the calibre of politician that inevitably moved into the vacuum of talent and intelligence created by Brexit. Because you can't support Brexit if you have a brain anymore. Maybe there was a case for it in 2016, but this is why you've ended up with people who don't have any capacity for shame and embarrassment. Just think about it. That's why you're finding it so baffling. You're looking at Nadeem Zahawi or James Cleverly or Robert Buckland or James Duddridge. You're looking at them and you're thinking, how do they sleep? How do they lie straight in bed? How do they... I mean, why don't they just disappear? If you had handcuffed yourself to Boris Johnson's bandwagon yesterday, and then by tea time the wheels have fallen off, you'd go and lie down in a darkened room for a while, wouldn't you? You'd get your mum to put a little flannel on your head and pour you a glass of Lucozade or something. You'd just hide, wouldn't you? Not this lot, no. 18 hours later, yay, go Rishi Sunak! Why? How? Who? Huh? It's because they have no capacity for shame or embarrassment. If you had any capacity at all for shame or embarrassment, you could not have ended up in Boris Johnson's cabinet. Even the ones that you might think are okay. Off the top of my head, I don't have any examples of ones that you might think are okay. But let's pretend that some of them are okay. The one with loads of names who used to sell get-rich-quick schemes on the internet, he might be okay. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't quite work, does it? The other one, you know, the Ron, they might be okay. They can't be okay because they went into Boris Johnson's cabinet or Liz Truss's cabinet. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do on the show today. Pick a favourite. What out of all of the stuff that's happened in the last 24 hours, what is most emblematic of the current crisis? What individual or incident? Three eyes for you. What individual, incident, or intervention best sums up just how... I want to swear. I can't swear, can I? Is there a case like for Ofcom when we get the hearing and we sit there and I say, actually, my lord, Your Honour, Your Excellency, actually, I would contend that the political situation in the United Kingdom on the morning of Monday, October the 24th, 2022 was so dire, so abjectly and objectively awful that I was completely within my rights to use words that would ordinarily see me marched out of the studio before my feet could touch the ground. No? All right then. We are absolutely stuffed. What incident, intervention, or individual do you point to first as proof, evidence, illustration of just how absolutely stuffed we are, or just how ridiculous the last 24 hours have been? And do you want to know something funny? Weird, funny, peculiar. Do you want to know something funny? I still don't understand you lot who spent years going on about how it's all fantastic because people like me are so upset. I mean, you must be absolutely crying into your gammon steaks this morning. You must be weeping all over your gammon and pineapple breakfast. I derive no pleasure at all from that. I can extract a little bit of fun from the general landscape, because if you don't, the alternative is despair. But I almost envy your ability to be so stupid. I really do. To watch your country catch fire and to claim that you love it because the people with the hoses are so upset. The people who understand what happens when you introduce naked flames to combustible material. The woke-arati, the tofu-eating woke-arati are so upset because you've just set fire to your own house. I almost envy you today, because I wish I could just muster up a scintilla of pleasure from the knowledge of how absolutely stupid, ridiculous and wrong you must feel this morning with your Boris Johnson flags and your Brexit mugs and your tanking economy and your abolished freedom of movement and your gaping holes in your workforce. You must feel fantastic. I wish I could. I'm supposed to enjoy this, right? We're supposed to go, ha ha ha. The gammon eating unwokerati are really upset. Like, I love it. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love it. Let's drink those Brexit tears or something. I forget. God, you're pathetic. And you won't stop, will you? Just like Johnson won't stop. Still out there. He'll be thinking, opportunity, ball come out the back of the scrum. Because every single thing you know about the man should have told you what was going to happen this week. We told you on Friday. Theo Usher denied that he probably wouldn't get the numbers. This was all about him. Oh, centre of attention, yes, please. Oh, instant gratification, yes, please. Oh, boost my own ego, yes, please. Oh, burnish the myth, yes, please. Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie, culminating in a claim trumpeted by nodding dogs like Jacob Rees-Mogg. Oh, yes, we've definitely got the numbers. We've definitely got the numbers. Can't tell you who they are, of course. No. And they go to a different school. I'll come up with a question for a more traditional radio phone-in type programme after this.
This is LBC.
22 minutes after 10 is the time. Okay, in the principles or interests of traditional phone-in radio, here's one. The people who are... You see, this is a go. Here's someone called Simon. Get that idiot James O'Brien off live radio. You've sent the tweet to the wrong email address, mate. That's our sister station. He's downgrading your standards. What a and then a rude word. See, if I was like him, I'd be able to enjoy this. This is all that drinking Remainer tears. The tofu eating mokarati. But your misery just saddens me still further, Simon. Even if your head is still up your backside, the fact that you're going to get a terrible backache brings me no pleasure whatsoever. I envy this idea that you can somehow derive pleasure from a disaster if it upsets people you don't like, even as it chops your own legs off at the knee. But hey-ho. I think the question I'm going to ask you is a very, very simple one, and I want you to accept it as an invitation to cast your net as widely as you please. Okay? What do you think about Rishi Sunak's journey to Prime Minister, which is all but over? It's all over bar the shouting. I suspect that it won't go to 2 o'clock, and we'll probably hear in the course of this programme today that Penny Mordaunt is not chucking her hat into the ring, whether she's got the numbers or not. Boris Johnson, I think we can say with some confidence, lied, even as he pulled out of the campaign, out of the contest yesterday, lied about having the requisite numbers in place. And who would even be surprised about that, given all the things he's lied about over the years? Who would actually be surprised that even as he quits the field of British politics again, because let's not pretend he'll be doing anything to uphold the interests of the constituents of Uxbridge, even as he quits British politics again, he did so with a massive lie, with a gargantuan calumny. Who'd be surprised? Even people that like him would be, oh yeah, good old Boris. Even at the end, they told a massive porky. Oh, I love porkies. They upset the tofu-eating wokarati. So that's the question. What do you make of it all? 03456060973. Rishi Sunak will become Prime Minister today, having not said a single word in public since Liz Truss resigned as Prime Minister. Not a single word, not a single policy, barely a breath. Nothing known about what his plan will be, except what he said during the last round of leadership hustings, which he lost. He's going to become Prime Minister with no mandate from anybody, except members of Parliament who belong to a party that is the biggest busted flush in the history of British politics. What does it say to you? What do you make of it? Rishi Sunak, his journey there, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the middle. What do you reckon? Gordon Brown didn't call a general election when he succeeded Tony Blair, so I'm afraid some of the calls from the Labour Party for national ballot are a little bit disingenuous. That's not how a parliamentary democracy works. You might have a debate about whether or not we've actually got a parliamentary democracy, but we have got a new Prime Minister, selected by considerably fewer people than the last one. The last one was in the tens of thousands in a country with a population of almost 70 million. This one involves an electorate of about 280 people. How many people is it?
The electorate?
Yeah, and how many Tory MPs are there?
The 600, total number of MPs is 650, the number of Conservative MPs is 354.
Let's do that again and just come out with the
Sorry.
answer. How many Tory MPs are there?
354.
Thank you very much. Theo Ashwood, LBC's political editor there, missing no tricks all over the story. And there it is. That's it. So now you can become Prime Minister of this country with 170 or 180 votes. It's always been that case. Always been the case, but how does it leave you feeling? What do you make of it all? 03456060973. Do you care about how rich he is? Do you care about how much his shoes cost? Do you care that he is perceived as having knifed Boris Johnson in the front, albeit that Boris Johnson should never have been allowed anywhere near Downing Street in the first place? What do you make of it? Anything you want. All angles covered. You may have gathered Theo Ushwood is in the studio. What's afoot, Theo?
Pressure is now mounting on Penny Mordaunt to step aside.
I literally just said that. As a speculation, and now you're bringing it to me as an actual report.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Those, from what I've been told, those MPs who are around her, supporting her campaign, are now thinking, actually, Penny Mordaunt needs to step aside. The coronation of Rishi Sunak is a foregone conclusion. She needs 100 supporters. She would have needed all of those who backed Boris Johnson to switch to her side in order to make the ballot by getting 100 supporters. That's clearly not happening because, of course, James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary, has gone from Boris Johnson to Rishi Sunak. Priti Patel, the former Home Secretary, has gone
to be fair to James Cleverly, there were 18 hours between his public statement of support for Boris Johnson and his public statement of support for Rishi Sunak. Of which probably 3 or 4 minutes were probably spent composing those tweets. So, give him a break.
But it's...
Who had the shortest wobble? Has anyone done the numbers on Zahawi yet to see how quickly he went from supporting Sunak to supporting Johnson?
29 minutes.
Zahawi was 29 minutes. You just made that up.
No, it's true.
It can't be.
It's true. The article went live on the Telegraph website. I follow these things closely,
I know you do.
At 9 p.m. last night.
Yeah.
For saying Boris Johnson was the man to lead the country. At 9:02, the press statement dropped.
From Johnson,
saying he wasn't standing.
So he's got all the nominations he needs, but they go to a different school.
And then at 9:29, I think it was, Nadhim Zahawi tweeted, actually, Rishi Sunak was the best person. He's the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, most senior member of the Cabinet Office, which is the Whitehall department, which manages everything across Whitehall.
357, says Alan.
Apologies, Alan.
Auditioning to replace you as LBC's political editor. So will it happen? Will it happen on my watch, do you think? Nothing ever happens on my watch.
The problem is, though, that Penny Mordaunt, from what I've been told, is just, she thinks the longer that she holds out...
The bigger job she'll get under Rishi Sunak.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. You can see her logic in a way.
She holds out, she pushes it all the way, she thinks she'd be more popular with the members, and she goes all the way
Does
right...
she? She thinks she'd win with the members?
Yeah.
Does
I
she?
think they wouldn't. She thinks she...
Has there been polling on it? Does the polling support that?
The polling from last time supported that she would win against the members. That's why Rishi Sunak was actually quite pro-Liz Truss making it to the final two over Penny Mordaunt. But, of course, we've heard from Lord Michael Howard this morning, the former Conservative leader, saying actually he thinks it's now time for Penny Mordaunt to step aside. There is concern that while she may have the backing of the members, if MPs, and the majority, we've just crossed the threshold now where the majority of Conservative MPs are backing Rishi Sunak,
yes,
then it becomes very difficult to see how.
And have we done that?
Yes.
We have.
But you mentioned the number 170, 180.
Well, it's half of 357.
Yeah, but it's Rishi Sunak.
178, 179.
Rishi Sunak needs 200 and...
Why?
Because he needs to ensure that Penny Mordaunt can't get 100.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
So he needs to get to 257.
What's he up to now?
170, 180.
Is that including Nadhim Zahawi and James Cleverly?
Yes, it will be, yes.
So they don't like lose some of their impact by dint of how quickly they flip.
No, you
still get a full vote. They don't say, sorry lads, you've been jumping around like a I don't know, a sausage in a frying pan. You've been sizzling all over the place, lads. You can't have another full vote in this.
No, they still get.
There's no penalty for being wrong about. No penalty for being wrong about everything.
No, you don't get it. No, it doesn't count against you.
Speaking of being wrong about everything, what's Nadine Dorries up to this morning?
Well, last night, James, she was threatening that all hell would break loose if it didn't go to a vote of the members.
Right.
Because and
yes, but that was last night. Last night, James Cleverly and Nadhim Zahawi were firmly in Boris Johnson's camp. What's she doing today?
I'll need to go and find out.
Don't worry about it. Holly Harris is here with your headlines. Oh, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. 10:35 is the time. All right, I've come up with a show now. Only half an hour since we started. I've got two shows for you today. One for the grown-ups and one for the slightly less mature members of the team, i.e. me, actually. So the grown-ups phone in is Rishi Sunak, eh? What do we think? 0345 606 0973. The juvenile phone in is who's actually had the most embarrassing 24 hours? And I really want you to think about it and bring me evidence. I'm not across everything. I had a bit of a weekend off, actually, apart from a few salty tweets. I wasn't that engaged in the political toing and froing because I do have a sort of almost a saturation point. So I'll give you Simon Clarke. You thought I was exaggerating earlier when I said that some of it actually reads like erotica. some of the pro-Boris Johnson stuff. That front page of the Daily Mail. I'm getting lots of people suggesting I made this up. I swear to you, on the front page of the Daily Mail today, after the biggest liar in the history of British politics, a law-breaking serial adulterer, is described on the front page of the Daily Mail thusly. For the good of the party and the country, Mr. Johnson set his dream aside. This is a gesture of wisdom, honour and statesmanship. His time will come again. So they go on the list, the Daily Mail. And at the end, we'll sort of pick a winner. Who has had the single most humiliating 24 hours as a direct consequence of handcuffing themselves to Boris Johnson's latest clown car? Simon Clarke MP, I forget what his job is, but I don't think anyone's going to hold that against me. It was different last week, it'll be different again next week. This is the line here. Okay, when I said it sounds like erotica and you thought I was exaggerating. Everyone knows my loyalty to Boris Johnson. Twitter is full of people who will never understand why so many people like him, even love him. Blech. They do so because he reflects the optimism and pride in community and country that they feel, and because he gives them a voice. If this bloke had any friends, they'd stage an intervention. That Boris Johnson reflects the optimism and pride in community and country that they feel. Boris Johnson set fire to the United... Well, he split it down the Irish Sea. He divided the party on a scale that no one has ever seen before. Arguably, even Jeremy Corbyn was a less divisive figure at the top of his political party than Boris Johnson has proved to be. Even as he leaves the field, he's lying about having the requisite support to stay on the field. I'm leaving the field, but I have all the support that I need to stay on the field. Simon Clarke MP. Twitter is full of people who will never understand why so many people like him, even love him. Blech. These people are real. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're like on the local association, you know, they're sort of elderly ladies with blue hair. That's fine. You know that you're going to get a degree of slightly weird devotion, like sort of, you know, David Essex fans. Superannuated David Essex fans. You're going to get a little bit of that in the Conservative, at the coffee mornings and the golf club. This bloke's in the cabinet, I think. Secretary of State for levelling up. They will never understand why so many people like him, even love him. That's British politics. So, Simon Clarke on the list. In fact, he may have moved to an early lead. If it wasn't for the fact that Theo Usher had just told me that Nadeem Zahawi's flip-flop took 29 minutes. So he's currently in first place. Cleverly in second. Daily Mail in third. Simon Clarke currently in fourth, but I think he's about to move up the table. So, grown-ups, give me a ring, talk about Rishi Sunak. Fellow juveniles, give me a ring and tell me who's had the most humiliating and embarrassing 24 hours as a direct consequence of handcuffing themselves to Boris Johnson's latest clown car. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Angus is in Milan and you were on hold before I introduced the juvenile element of the programme, so you must be here to play with the grown-ups. Angus, what do you think of Rishi Sunak?
Oh, James, good morning.
Hello.
Thank you for taking my call. And thank you, actually, for keeping a flag flying for some sort of sane comment in all this.
Somebody has to.
I can actually give you a question. I can give you an answer to both. I mean, the juvenile is a no-brainer. Rees-Mogg in any 24 hours would take the biscuit. It doesn't have to be the last 24 hours. I mean, just any time you like.
He's the one that went public and said, it must be true because Boris Johnson said so. And then it all fell apart like one of his own cheap suits. Rees-Mogg's on the list.
I'm calling from Italy. If Italians could understand the British culture a little bit better, I do try to explain, they would realise how embarrassing Rees-Mogg is generally. In terms of Rishi Sunak, deep sigh of relief, to be honest. I mean, we know that we really are down, as we said, to the backwash, the binges. So the candidates are just dreadful. The idea of Boris coming back was appalling. Yes. But it just, from afar, it just felt so unjust that when the hustings went through the last time, we came up with Liz Truss.
Yes, it was surreal, wasn't it, looking back, when you sort of think about... And I think the hosts have a lot to answer for, apart from Krishna Gurumurthy, who did push on these points. But the idea that Liz Truss's fairy tales were treated as an equal and opposite position to Rishi Sunak's fairly informed explanations of how international economics actually works.
The mind boggles. I mean, we have somebody who is competent. I mean, I profess to being slightly Labour leaning,
sure,
but I think he is the best thing that could possibly have happened at this moment for the country.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's the least pungent cup of bin juice is what we have here. That's, I mean, you have to drink one of them, and that is the one that. But actually, I'm going to stop this analogy now. It's even making me feel a bit. It's make me feel. What do we know about him though? He had the. He took a lot of praise originally for the furlough at the beginning of. I think that was a bold move. I'm not sure they could have done anything else short of either not locking down or bankrupting pretty much every company in the country. Eat Out to Help Out turned out to be a massive misfire, but it was rather popular at the time. What do we know about him? All I could tell, if you said to me, what's the most interesting thing you know about Rishi Sunak, I'm afraid I would probably have to say, well, apparently he was writing articles about why we should leave the European Union when he was still at school. That doesn't bode well or fill me with optimism.
No, I think the most certain thing I can say about him, which goes in the face of an appalling caller that I heard recently, he is British.
Yes. You mean Sangeeta, dealing with a caller saying he's not British?
Exactly. That was hideous. Frightening.
They used to ring me, those
Absolutely
people.
appalling.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Wasn't it? And she dealt with it quite
British.
brilliantly. Yeah, fair enough.
He's competent. He's a banker, and I think that instinct will guide the rest of them fairly well.
The less ideology he's got, the more confidence I have in your analysis. If he's really just bringing an abacus and a calculator to Downing Street, then actually a lot of the stuff you've said would be quite encouraging. I don't know what he's like ideologically, but he clearly leans to the right of the right. Otherwise, A, he wouldn't have flourished in the modern Conservative Party, and B, he wouldn't have wanted to stay in it after Brexit. Thank you, Angus. Arrivederci. Natasha is in Northampton. Natasha, what would you like to say?
Hi, I just feel like it's being overlooked that Rishi...
Hang on. Sorry. Grown up phoning or juvenile phoning?
Probably grown up, I'll say.
We'll get you. Go on then.
I just feel like no one's mentioning that Rishi got a fixed note penalty as well.
Yeah, that's very true.
And it's been so overlooked, and Boris faced so much scrutiny over that.
Well, it was more that he faced scrutiny over standing up in the House of Commons and saying there hadn't been any parties, and then standing up in the House of Commons and say, well, actually there were some parties, but I didn't know anything about them, and then standing up in the House of Commons and say, well, actually there were some parties and I did actually know about them, but I definitely didn't go to them, and then standing up in the House of Commons and say, well, actually there were some parties and I did know about them and I did go to them, but I didn't actually realise it was a party. So there is a fairly large gulf between what Johnson did and what Sunak did, albeit that their punishments were identical.
There is I completely agree, and I do not agree with Boris's politics in any way, shape or form, I would say, but I just feel like nobody is talking about it. And
no, free pass on that. I would like to know how grieving bereaved COVID families feel about that, actually, because it's all very well me saying that, there's a massive difference. But if I had lost somebody, I think I'd feel much, much angrier with Boris Johnson than I do with Rishi Sunak, albeit that they receive the same punishment. But it's not really for me to say, is it?
No, and I feel like it's just been overlooked, and I feel like no one's really talking about it.
Well, we are now.
We are.
There we go.
Should he be leader? Who knows?
Yeah, indeedy. Let's find out. 10:45 is the time. So, Rishi Sunak, what do you reckon? 0345 606 0973. And who has had the most nightmarish 24 hours as a direct consequence of handcuffing themselves to Boris Johnson's latest clown car shortly before the wheels fell off again?
Our next Prime Minister. Have your say and follow it live on LBC. James O'Brien on LBC.
10:49 is the time. Jonathan Gull is getting a lot of votes, but I want to leave it to you. I want to leave to the callers to talk me through why your nomination for the most embarrassing politician in the last 24 hours, or not just politician, the most embarrassing Tory supporter. So it could be, for example, the Daily Mail. It could be a journalist or a columnist, even a broadcaster who's had the most embarrassing 24 hours. At the moment, Simon Clarke is going to take some beating because he's been explaining why people actually love Boris Johnson. Not just like, but love. Yikes. David's in Victoria. David, what made you pick up the phone?
Various reasons, but to answer your direct question, I would say the Daily Mail and Jacob Rees-Mogg are the front runners in embarrassing moments.
You're only allowed one, David. You can't.
The Mail then. Okay, the Mail. Right. But I'm actually a Penny Mordaunt supporter, and I'd like to explain why. I'm probably academic now, but she would disarm the Labour Party. If we're not going to have an election, I think that she would disarm the Labour Party more than anybody because she hasn't got the baggage that Sunak's got. They can't accuse her of all the things that the Labour Party love to accuse Sunak of, or Johnson. I don't want Johnson at all. I'm totally in agreement with you on that one.
But Sunak has been hitched to Johnson for long enough for some of the infamy to have rubbed off.
Partly that, and partly his own baggage. The things that go on about him not being too rich and being Indian origin and all this kind of stuff, which is nonsense.
I haven't heard the Labour Party pick up on his ethnicity as a reason for...
Not yet, but when he's Prime Minister, they may well do.
Really? It'd be a first.
I think they might. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, I mean, it's an open question, but with
No, I understand your reasoning on Penny Mordaunt. If I could ask you one tricky question. After all that's happened, talk me through the motivation for being desperate to find a Tory who can be most easily disassociated from the last 12 years of Tory government, rather than thinking perhaps it's time someone else had a go.
I said, well, we're not going to have an election, are we? It's unrealistic to expect one. Because
but you're talking about her doing well against Labour, so that obviously means in an election. So I just wonder.
I'm talking about not against. I don't know what she'll do in an election. I'm talking about the next 2 years.
Oh, okay.
It's a different matter.
Okay.
In the next 2 years, she will disarm Labour's main attack against the other two. Boris is out of it anyway, so it's irrelevant. So that leaves Sunak. And so I think they should be. She would be the best placed person to disarm their attack.
Yes, I understand. And why do you want that? Why do you want someone who's well placed to?
Because I think I actually like Penny Mordaunt. I think with the performances I've seen in the House of Commons, I actually like what she says and does, the way she behaves. I think she's. From
the little I've seen, I've got no beef with her either. She seems very.
And I think had she been put in, she was rode out of it in the last election.
By the Daily Mail.
And Truss got it, yes. The Truss got it unfairly, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I feel that had she been elected, we wouldn't be where we are now.
You're probably right. I mean, it could not have collapsed as quickly as it did under Liz Truss. I mean, even if Dusty Bin had been elected leader of the Conservative Party and made Prime Minister, I don't think that the collapse could have been as quick as it was under Liz Truss. But, I mean, who knows? I think you're probably right, for the record, that she would have probably hung in there or got a much better performance as Prime Minister than Liz Truss. But then so would our new kitten. Nigel's in Putney. Nigel, what have you got?
Good morning, James. I would like to nominate Jacob Rees-Mogg as having the worst 24 hours.
Well, this guy?
I have been speaking to Boris Johnson, and clearly he's going to stand. There's a great deal of support for him, as you will have seen.
That was yesterday. That guy yesterday morning.
Yeah. Well, I've followed Rees-Mogg for a number of years. A few years ago, he used to be mildly eccentric. But since he became rather embarrassingly devoted to Boris Johnson, along with Nadine Dorries, and as being a Catholic as well, I think he's a disgrace to the Catholic Church by backing a liar and a philanderer and a narcissist. So
I mean, of those three things, I should probably point out narcissism isn't actually one of the 10 Commandments, although I think the other two are.
No, it isn't, but I think vanity might come into it and things like that.
Yes, I mean, speaking as a fellow prominent Catholic in the country, according to the Catholic Herald, I feel I'm qualified to hold forth on this subject, Nigel, as a fellow nominee. It isn't right to trumpet your Christianity in pursuit of political capital when the way you live your life shows absolutely no adherence to Christian values whatsoever.
Well, that's it.
Yes.
When Boris resigned, his resignation speech, with not a scintilla of contrition, when he went back into the hallway of number 10, who was there? Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries.
Yes.
And I just couldn't believe that after a man who had lied, who was a serial liar all his life, and they're still so devoted to him. I mean, I find it rather embarrassing. Really.
Well, it is hugely embarrassing. I don't know if you're listening on Friday when we canvassed calls from elsewhere, from outside the United Kingdom, and the abiding word was embarrassing. Are you, Nigel, forgive me for asking this, are you familiar with the Harry Potter novels or films by any chance?
I'm afraid I'm not. I saw one film, but the Deathly Hallows Part 1, but that's all
Fair
I've
enough,
seen.
because your analysis of Rees-Mogg and Dorries reminds me of Crabbe and Goyle, the sort of henchman to Draco Malfoy, who actually turns good in the end, so it's probably unfair to compare him to Boris Johnson. Spoiler alerts, by the way, for people not familiar with the plot. But these sort of competing sycophants on either shoulder of the diabolical protagonist. You do think sometimes that Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries have got little voodoo dolls of each other into which they stick pins because Boris smiled at them today and he should have been smiling at me. And then, of course, we're back to Simon Clarke, who has treated us to an insight into why people don't just like Boris Johnson but actually love him. Thank you, Nigel. A couple of phone lines free. Don't text me complaining that you can't get through. Wait until I say goodbye to somebody like Nigel. Goodbye, Nigel. And then grab the phone line that he vacates. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. 2 phone-ins today. One for the grown-ups. What do we think of Rishi Sunak? What do we know? What do we know about Rishi Sunak? There you go. It's 2 phone-ins for the grown-ups. And one for the children. Who's had the most crushingly embarrassing 24 hours? Jacob Rees-Mogg into the lead. I've put Simon Clarke in second place now, followed by the Daily Mail. James Cleverly will be relieved that he's only in 4th place. And Nadeem Zahawi challenging him now, because it took James Cleverly 18 hours to flip-flop in a humiliating fashion. It took Nadeem Zahawi 29 minutes. James is in Worthing. James, what would you like to say?
Oh, good morning, James.
Hello.
Hi, listen, I'm going to apologise to you in advance because I will frustrate you and I will annoy you, and I don't intend to.
All right.
I get terrible anxiety and sometimes I go off like a machine gun.
Okay.
So I just need you to be kind to me and rein me in when you need to.
Thank you for the heads up. I'll do my best.
Thank you. Listen, long-term fan, and I know you don't do praise very well, and I know you're uncomfortable with it, but you are by far the best presenter that I have listened to in 30 years on the radio. Wow. Honestly, listening to the radio.
Thank you.
And the reason I know that...
No, move on now. Move on now.
Okay,
that was a lovely
Right,
compliment. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. You are so welcome.
Thank you.
Right, where do we start? Blimey, let's start at the beginning, okay? Let's go back to 2016.
Yeah.
2016, when David Cameron made the most God almighty error that any politician's probably ever made, and history will prove that to be the case.
Already has.
He gave us the opportunity. Well, yeah, the thing is, everybody keeps going on at you about sort of Brexit, and you should forget it now and move on, but you can't, because it's the catalyst for everything that we're going through today.
Yes.
The reason that Cameron goes to vote, well, the most diabolical thing that Cameron did...
You've only got 90 seconds left. Just a warning, just a friendly warning.
Okay, 90 seconds left. Cameron gave us the opportunity to vote on something that he didn't bother to inform us about. He had no campaign. He let us all down. He had the people in the background chivvying away with the stuff that they were chivvying away with, tainting the minds of people with social media and everything else. Hence the fact we left Brexit. We're leaving Europe. Boris didn't vote to leave Europe. Jacob Rees-Mogg did. There's a clue for you.
No, Johnson did as well.
Johnson left to leave Brexit. Okay, all right, so we got Johnson. So Johnson...
He wrote 2 columns the night before, one for Remain and one for Leave, and then sort of took a decision based on what would be in his own personal best interests. He didn't want to win. He didn't want to win, but he did vote for it.
Okay, so he was hedging his bets there. Yeah. You've got Jacob Rees-Mogg sat in the background just about to make millions of pounds off the pound crashing. Yeah. You've got Nigel Farage and his cronies just about to make millions of pounds off the pound crashing. Jump forward to now. We've got a Conservative Party now that are facing an absolute whitewash in the next general election, okay?
Yes.
So what's going to happen, or what has happened, the build-up to Rishi Sunak now being Prime Minister. Okay, so Kwasi Kwarteng, Liz Truss, they were just sacrificial lambs, no question whatsoever. They couldn't put Rishi Sunak into the Prime Ministership then because the pound was still going down, okay?
Right.
So Kwasi Kwarteng came in to do a job. Liz Truss came in to do a job. And you picked up on it, actually. I was listening to you on the radio at the time because you kept playing sound bites of Liz Truss being questioned as to why Kwasi Kwarteng had done what he'd done. Well, you have to look at the clues. You have to look at the clues. Right. The clues are that Rishi Sunak raised the bankers' bonuses. Why? Because he knew that they were just about to make loads of money. Because he artificially crashed the pound.
Yeah, okay, we're out of time, and you did brilliantly. I really enjoyed listening to you. I'm moving on only because the news headlines, as you can tell, are just around the corner. I do disagree with you. I understand the need to make sense of the madness, but it might just be madness. There was certainly no master plan in the hands of Conservative politicians. I mean, even Danny Blanchflower, who is not even close to being a Conservative politician, I think it was Danny, who was explaining why there was going to be a tanking of the pound, because anyone who understood the relationship between interest rates and inflation and uncosted tax cuts could have predicted it. What's astonishing is that so many people in the cabinet couldn't, but there's no earthly way, mate, that Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss wanted the reaction to the mini budget that they ended up receiving, and that's the flaw in your theory. Time. I can't put this person on the list because they are as yet unidentified. I don't think we can start putting anonymouses on the list. But Stephen Swinford, the political editor of The Times, reported yesterday morning at about 9:15 that Boris Johnson's colleagues who'd been on a Zoom call with him were very upbeat and ebullient. One of them was even, here you go. Imagine this. Imagine that Boris Johnson was your man, right? And you were talking to a senior political journalist, and you wanted to prove that that he was different, that the leopard had changed his spots. Nadeem Zahawi debasing himself in the pages of the Daily Telegraph, talking about Boris 2.0. We're not Boris 2.0, we're Boris 12.0, and it's just as addled, curdled and corrupt as Boris 11.0, 10.0, 9.0, 8.0, 7.0, 6.0, 5.0, 4.0, 3.0, 2.0 and 1.0. Just ask any of his wives. He doesn't change his spots. He never changes. But there's Nadeem Zahawi going, oh, no, he's really changed this time. He's really changed this time. He's promised me he's changed. No, he's changed. He's not. He's changed. He's really changed. So this guy on the phone to the political editor of The Times, casting around for something to say to persuade people, Johnson's really changed. Oh, he's really changed. Do you know what he came up with? He had his shirt tucked in. That was 8 o'clock yesterday morning. You could tell Boris Johnson had really changed and was serious this time because he had his shirt tucked in. 5 minutes after 11. James is in Gillingham. James, what would you like to say?
Oh, hello, James.
Hello,
Great
James.
programme. Thank you for taking my call. I spoke to you about a couple of years ago. I'm one of the excluded, Forgotten Limited.
Oh, yes.
The businesses, and I'm not. Listen, you were a great support at one time, and I know it's fallen by the wayside a bit, but thank you for that. Basically, I'm really ringing to say, and I'm speaking to your researcher or producer, that it will be Sunak's legacy that, he abandoned basically 3 to 4 million small business owners, a lot of them being Conservative voters.
Yes.
I wasn't myself, but, I've been a floating voter, and it's caused a massive amount of, I can't really think of the word. Just it's not really hatred. It's a deep-rooted, you know what I'm
antipathy,
trying to say?
a visceral antipathy.
Antipathy of the man. Yeah. There was total lack of morals there. He never met up with us.
And of course, everyone else was cheering him to the rafters at the time.
Well, they still are, you see. That's what's so... It sticks in our craw a bit because I've listened to various programmes and people are saying, let's not forget he was brilliant during the pandemic.
Right.
And there will be 3 million people, if they were all listening to that at the same time, you'd hear the intake of breath.
You were completely abandoned. I remember saying, I think possibly even to you, that I'm sure he is going to move to address this because it's such a gaping anomaly in the whole furlough policy that he has to do something to help people like you, and we could fill our switchboard every day with people in the same situation from that cohort of 3 million business people, business owners, and he never did. He never did he? He never threw you anything.
And it was very strange politically. Well, morally, I think that was by the wayside. He just had decided he was interviewed people like Martin Lewis, and Martin Lewis tried his hardest for us.
He did.
And even then, Sunak just evaded the question or spoke in a noisy factory or something so that he couldn't hear the question. It was appalling. People took their lives because of this. 30 known suicides as a result of this.
Well, I wasn't aware of that, and I wasn't aware that you were going to reference it. So I just mark that contribution with proper sobriety, and I'll remind people shortly how they can contact the Samaritans if they are dealing with similar issues themselves. But you highlight the gravitas of the scenario, and it speaks, I think, doesn't it, to Sunak's character? He has that ability, and arguably all politicians need this, but or all politicians of a certain Outlook need this. He could just close his ears and his eyes to people like you. He could just forget your existence or not conjure up any care or compassion at all.
I think the compassion is the words. There was no compassion of people who have families, who have mortgages, who have responsibilities like myself. Yeah. I've come through it. I've worked really hard. I sold machinery
I remember.
To keep my head above water.
It's antique prints. You're in you do antique.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, James. No. And I do appreciate your support, and Sheila Fogarty particularly as well.
Yes, I think she did more than me. And as you remind us, lots of people won't have come through it. Some of them not at all. And that's a really good point. And I will henceforth qualify all of my commentary on the perceived success of the furlough scheme by including the 3 million people in your situation, James. It seems the least I can do.
That means a lot.
No, well, it shouldn't. I shouldn't have needed reminding, so I apologise for that, actually. But yes, while he does continue to receive plaudits for the, quotes, generosity of his furlough scheme, albeit that it was conducted entirely with taxpayers' money or government borrowing, wherever the actual cash came from, there were 3 million business owners who would, as James alluded to, historically and traditionally perhaps have expected a Conservative Chancellor to be particularly sympathetic to them, given the historical claims of proximity to business and support for entrepreneurship. And they were completely and summarily abandoned with, as James has reminded us, in some cases, truly tragic consequences. So yes, I'm afraid that should be front and centre in all retrospective analyses of Sunak's performance during COVID. And as promised, if you are dealing with issues such as some of the ones that James referred to, the Samaritans are available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and you can contact them on 116123. It's completely free. There are other ways you can get in touch. Just head over to samaritans.org to find out. 10 minutes after 11 is the time. Amanda is on the Isle of Skye. Amanda, what made you reach for the phone?
I just wanted to say that Sunak is the same old. He's part of that cabal. And was there something about he lost 11 billion somewhere that the
Could you please do your research before you come on the programme? I'm coming on here with your half baked. You'll be having a presenter who uses Google next just to double check things before he says them out loud. You should have your ducks in a row before you get on the programme, Amanda.
Okay, I'm sorry, I haven't.
So I'm only teasing you. I'm only teasing you.
But he is the same old.
Yes, he is, actually. And he put up with all of the nonsenses and scandals and lies that right up until the one he didn't put up with.
Yeah, and he also, if he's the Chancellor, then was he part of all the VIP people getting the money and things?
Well, again, they're all, if there were offences committed, moral rather than legal probably during that period, then in a sense they're all complicit, but I don't think he was one of the people who was actually caught intervening to grease the wheels of lucrative contracts being awarded to contacts or cronies or friends or even local publican. 11:11 is the time. Thank you, Amanda. Was Sunak the one that James was only permitted a stand-up interview with in order to allow a quick termination? No, that was Jeremy Hunt, actually. That was Jeremy Hunt when he was Secretary of State for Health. A very surreal experience. I tend not to get interviews with heavy-hitting Conservative politicians anymore, but back in the day I did. And Jeremy Hunt insisted on doing the interview standing up. And we didn't know why, because he'd done Channel 4 News 5 minutes previously sitting down. And we were in a room in the Department of Health, which was actually full of chairs. This is what was particularly hilarious about it. You know, rooms in sort of big buildings where they might do presentations and things like that. They have stacks of chairs against the wall for the days when they need a little audience or they're going to do a press conference. So I'm sitting in a room full of chairs, being told by Jeremy Hunt that if I didn't agree to conduct the entire interview standing up, then there wouldn't be any interview at all. And I remember doing that thing. God, you've got a better memory than me, whoever sent this text. I remember doing that thing where he actually said, well, if you don't like it, then I'm going to take my ball home. And I actually, to my shame, I went, oh, no, we'll do it standing up. Because I couldn't go back to the office. I was only the tea boy on Newtonight. I wasn't a regular. I couldn't go back and say, all right, no, he laid down an ultimatum and said if we didn't do it standing up in a room full of chairs, there'd be no interview at all. So I told him to sling his hook. But I didn't. I did agree to conduct it standing up. And then towards the end of the interview, when we played it out on the telly, the editor said in my ear, he said, do you know, you're right. This is absolutely bonkers. Why on earth are you doing it standing up? And they said, look, if you want to say something about it, you can. So we come back from the live interview, from the recorded interview, back to the live studio. And I said, I have no idea why Jeremy Hunt wanted to conduct that interview standing up. I don't know whether I added that we were in a room full of chairs. But subsequently, it was suggested it must have been in case he wanted to make a quick getaway. It just was a nice sort of strike. Anyway, it must go, must dash. And you'll be like, well, you're in your own office. Why are you pretending, but on telly it wouldn't come across? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Someone should have phoned in and asked him when he did my holiday cover. As indeed should be preparation for all future Chancellors of the Exchequer, should have to come in and do a shift on the James O'Brien programme. Jim's in Harlow. Jim, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Just to say, echo everyone else's comments. Last
Pincher, not Philp. Sorry, I got the wrong scandal. Chris Pincher, not Chris Philp. It was the one that did for him. Chris Philp has not been involved in any insalubrious activities as far of that nature. It was Chris Pincher by name, Pincher by nature. Back to you, Jim. Sorry, mate.
No, I was to say, praise for the last couple of weeks. You've been absolutely box office. The Sony Gold Award is yours for the taking, James.
You're very kind. If only we entered the Sonys, but sadly we don't for various reasons that I don't fully understand. But I'll take your plaudit as being worth a million trophies, Jim. Are you here for the mature phone-in conversation for the grown-ups, or are you going to join me in the juvenile pit?
I'm here for the juvenile pit.
Yes. Go on.
Brendan Clark-Smith.
T-shirt boy.
Yes. For the fact that on a Sunday he has found someone to print a Back Boris T-shirt just shows an unprecedented level of...
Could he not have had that already? I mean, there must have been a time for a back... But he's kept it in his underwear drawer, no?
Well, I mean, I can imagine his wife probably every Sunday saying, "Oh, are you going to throw away that Back Boris T-shirt?" And he's probably saying, "Well, you never know.
No way.
Might just need it one time, and perhaps that was time." But I just think to go out on a Sunday to have that printed and then to be sort of...
Look, even if he didn't have it printed, it said, for people who haven't seen it, it said Boris. It was tweeted at 31 minutes after 9 yesterday morning. Team #Bring Back Boris in high spirits this morning. He has the mandate and the magic with voters. And this is a retweet of someone called James Duddridge, who should also really be in the frame for this award. Boris on good form at the 8 a.m. meeting with MPs. In a first for Boris, he was rather smartly dressed. I wonder if he's the shirt tucker. He made it very clear the Privileges Committee must and will be allowed to get on with their process. Oh, a liar told me something, and I believe it. He will cooperate fully. And then he writes, G82C, the boss, reach out to the other camps. I have no idea what that means. G82C? Do you know what that means?
No, I'm in my 40s, so
I'll give you Brendan Clark-Smith, ladies and gentlemen, who at 9, let's get the time, 31 yesterday morning, was wearing a Boris T-shirt. Shall we find the flip-flop? Let's find the flip-flop. Where is the flip-flop? God, his whole Twitter feed is full of endorsements for Boris Johnson. Maybe he hasn't actually flip-flopped yet. He must have flip-flopped. Has he not?
He has flopped this morning.
No, he's flopped. Here it is. 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago, ladies and gentlemen. I am disappointed that Boris Johnson has pulled out of the race to lead the Conservatives, having secured the nominations necessary. Except he didn't, mate. I'd prove it. Give us the names. He would have no doubt won in a ballot of party members. Yeah, he would have no doubt won. He just didn't enter it because he doesn't want to. However, it's also important to command the support of the parliamentary party, and therefore he took the dignified decision to... I can't read anymore. He's on the list, Jim. Thank you.
No, right, James.
Well, there you go. It's 11:17.
This is LBC.
As you can.
20 minutes after 11 is the time. And that nomination there for someone called Brendan Clark-Smith actually gathers pace during the break, because he tweeted 17 hours ago, told ya, spelt Y-A, the mother of all parliaments, they told ya, in response to a claim from Chris Heaton-Harris that Boris Johnson's WhatsApp group was claiming that they had the backers and they had the verified paperwork and that Johnson would definitely be competing, to which Brendan Clark-Smith tweeted, told ya! And that got retweeted by someone called James Duddridge, who at 10 o'clock last night tweeted, after an entire day of tweeting people like Nadeem Zahawi and Anne-Marie Trevelyan and James Cleverly and all of the people coming out for Boris. He spent the whole day yesterday, which I imagine was a relief to his family, but he spent the whole day yesterday on Twitter retweeting support for Boris Johnson. And at 10 o'clock last night, this fella, who's the MP for Rochford and Southend East, tweeted, well, that was unexpected, off to bed. And then guess what he did this morning? In fact, guess what he did 47 minutes ago? So a whole day of retweeting the buffoon in the Boris T-shirt and sundry other sycophants and forelock tuggers. Guess what he announced 47 minutes ago? Essex MP announces support for Rishi Sunak after Boris pulls out of race. A Southend MP who had set out his support for Boris. And I'm back to that inability to even acknowledge shame or embarrassment. You need it to flourish in the post-Brexit Conservative Party. If you've got anything that remotely resembles a conscience, you would have shriveled up and died, metaphorically speaking, by now. Anyway, on we go. What do we know about Rishi Sunak and who has had the worst 24 hours? I'm going to put James Duddridge and Brendan Clark-Smith together because I don't think they're well enough known to be individual entrances. Duddridge and Clark-Smith coming in late, a bit late. I mean, halfway through the race, but they're coming in there at numbers 6, I think. 22 after 11. Paul's in Munich, in Germany. Paul, what have you got? What would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello.
Good to hear you. First time caller, long time listener. Thank you for taking my call.
How do you say that in German? Can you say that in German?
Langzeithörer.
Danke.
Langzeithörer, yeah. But anyway, here we are. And as I say, I've been following the conversation this morning, and obviously the German position here is that we're desperate, I think, in Germany for some adults in the room. So I'm talking about the adults and not the juveniles, I'm afraid.
No, good.
But the adults in the room definitely want to get away from this constant conversation about the Conservative Party, and it's driving us nuts here. But I'm looking at a Spiegel magazine. It says The Banana Island. That's the front cover of the biggest German news magazine in Germany, the Banana Island.
I'm trying to think what the equivalent is in the UK, but we haven't really got one. It's like a cross between The Economist and the New Statesman and The Spectator and all there, isn't it? It's a kind of bigger.
It is the defining kind of news weekly magazine. But I mean, talking about Banana Republics, everybody said that, and it was Brittany last week, and now it's Banana Republic, it's Banana Island this week. So. I mean, the feeling about Rishi Sunak is that, yes, it looks like it's an adult, but of course we all remember those images of him talking to a local constituent saying that, I managed to source the money for you guys, taking it away from more needy others.
That was astonishing. That was in Tunbridge Wells. It's a timely reminder that he appeared to be saying that he was in Cabinet trying to agitate for the wealthier areas to get more money from so-called levelling up funds than the poorer areas. I did have a minor corrective to that when it was pointed out that actually even schools in places like Tunbridge Wells will be suffering from epic pressure on their budgets. Reported at the weekend that 9 out of 10 schools are worried about actually going bankrupt in the coming months. That was from the National Association of Head Teachers. So there was a sort of logic to what he was saying, but I mean, either way, it was appalling optics, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And now also the story about the 800,000 children in the UK going without school lunches, and you're thinking, Christ, this is, sorry for
no, that's okay.
The exclusive, but the fact that this is a wealthy country, that there are so many kids under the poverty line. I mean, it really
does that not happen in Germany? Is that not?
We have it. We have different issues. Clearly, there is poverty in Germany as well, but it's just nothing like the extent that in the UK at the moment. So, as I say, it's a constant position of embarrassment for me as a Brit, because I spend half of my life trying to say, look, the Brits will come back. I mean, I'm fighting for this idea that at some stage there will be a return to a single market, and somebody like Rishi Sunak would actually welcome that.
Well, I mean, he's in the same boat as Starmer, isn't he? It's still, I think, politically. Yeah. Very, very dangerous to publicly state that. But unless they've had lobotomies, they must both understand that it is the only. I mean, Starmer's ruled it out, I think. I keep reading that he's ruled it out.
That,
I don't remember. I mean, certainly rejoining has been ruled out, but I didn't realise he'd ruled out single market membership as well.
But he's also ruled out electoral reform as an issue on the Labour manifesto for a next election. Because I mean, fundamentally, if you go back to Brexit and electoral reform, those are kind of two underlying causes of the malaise we're in at the moment.
Yes, they are, although his logical defence of that decision would simply be that when I'm in power, I want to be in power undiluted. I want to be in complete power. It could come back to haunt him, that, of course, if the opinion poll leads start to narrow when the new fella is in place. And speaking of the new fella, still wondering whether we should probably Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. We should probably catch up with Theo, find out whether it is like nothing ever happens on this show in terms of politics. I got one, didn't I? Didn't I get Johnson's final? Didn't I get Johnson's final waltz when Johnson went? Or did I get... Truss waited until 1:30. Can you believe that? 1:30 before she came out and stood behind that lectern and wibbled something about being right, but doing all the right things, but not necessarily in the right order or something. Didn't I announce John? Wasn't I not on air for... I can't remember, actually. It's all blurring into one in my head. Harry's in Newton Abbot in Devon. Harry, what would you like to say?
So I'm talking on behalf of the Kids Club today.
Carry on.
I think that the most embarrassed people in the UK must be these 102 MPs that must go to another school.
No, we know about 50-odd of them. 50-odd of them definitely exist. It's the other 50-odd we're not so sure about.
Yeah, there's a few that absolutely do exist, but
yes.
It's the I like that they weren't completely on the 100 mark. It was 102, so that must be real because it's not a round number.
No, actually, it's even sillier. I think if you get a seconder and a proposer, then it needs to. So it's 100. You get a seconder and a proposer plus 100. So he's claiming that he got exactly
the number.
Yes, what an amazing coincidence.
Yeah, that's. I mean, he can't show those names because obviously that's just silly. And why would people want evidence and proof to back up their assertions? But the last 24 hours, those exact 100 MPs, they must just be really embarrassed.
I was travelling at 69.9 miles per hour, officer. I have it here on the clock in front of me. Exactly 60, or exactly 70. But I mean, you're allowed to travel at 70, aren't you? Not 70.1, not 70.2, it's 70 miles. Yeah, they'd be embarrassed. But I mean, you've got to pick a favourite. So no one's put Jonathan Gullis on the list yet.
I would probably have to go with Michael Fabricant as being the most embarrassed, I think, today.
No, you can't have that, because that's true on the other 364 days of the year.
Because he's had to go with hashtag PM for PM today, hasn't he? And that's just an atrocious hashtag.
They shouldn't be allowed near hashtags in the first place. Rees Mogg, of course, we haven't mentioned this, was going for Boris or bust. So does he resign now? Because he essentially thinks the party or the country is bust, given that Johnson has failed?
I think what it shows is just the absolute dire state that the Tory party are in.
It does.
That, there's people like myself who are wondering how they're going to be paying their electricity bills next month.
I'm sorry to hear.
And we've got a bunch of sort of Eton millionaires who are more worried about which one of their mates will ruin the economy next.
I think Rishi Sunak went to Westminster, but he's actually richer than all of the Eton millionaires. So your point stands. And they were treating it.
That non-dom status has helped him quite a lot, hasn't it? So
helped his wife, but I take your point. The thing that got me on Saturday, actually, while I was watching Strictly, funnily enough, was that you speak to people like Harry, and you speak to people in much worse situations of people like Harry. They're not worried about pay their energy bill. They know they can't. Worried about how they're going to feed their kids. And the whole thing, and today, in a way, I'm afraid I'm part of the problem rather than the solution, but I'm allowing myself one day to reflect upon the astonishing events of the last few days. They're treating all of these MPs, especially the one in a bloody T-shirt, pardon my French, a T-shirt. I'm going to put on a T-shirt and take a selfie of myself, a Boris Johnson T-shirt. They're treating it like an episode of Strictly. The epic problems in which the country finds itself, the economic sanctions which we have imposed upon ourselves, the energy crisis, which is still acute, even with help from government. All of these things appear not to be registering. Rishi Sunak said nothing about any of them. Boris Johnson obviously didn't care enough to postpone his holiday to the Caribbean, let alone actually get off his backside and do something. It was bizarre. I just had this weird flash on Saturday. My God, because I was watching Strictly and I was treating Strictly like an episode of Strictly, which is, I think, the wisest approach to take. Probably Tony Adams, since you ask, but who knows? And then I realised that's what it reminds me of. I see these tweets throughout the day. That's what it reminds me of. They're all, but it's like it's a TV show and they're just voting for their favourite. It's ridiculous. Not least because in the context of Strictly Come Dancing, it's 11:35. Catching up with events in China in about 10 minutes' time. Really astonishing scenes, actually, even by the standards of Chinese politics. And I think Xi Jinping becomes the first Chinese leader since Mao Zedong to move into a sort of third. Well, I don't have the history actually to fully recall what Mao did, but you're supposed to step down after 2 goes at being Chinese president, and Xi Jinping is moving into a third term in power with some astonishing consequences visible on state television. Actually, one former leader being led out of the closing ceremony of the Communist Party Congress with some speculation it was because he might have objected to this breach with protocol and tradition. So we'll catch up on that shortly. Before that, we stay with this. And then I'm going to do a Boris Johnson phone-in after 12. Or possibly a Brexit phone-in, actually. It's funny, do we do the first Brexit phone-in of a new era or the last Boris Johnson phone-in of an old era? It's a tough call, that, actually. I don't know. I'll decide as my want at the very last minute, or possibly even later than that. In the meantime, 2 phone-ins, just mopping up, if you prefer. The grown-up one, which is what do we know about Rishi Sunak and what do we think about him? And the second one is who has had the most humiliating 24 hours in the context of people who handcuff themselves to Boris Johnson's latest clown car. Jonathan Gullis wrote, as long ago as July of this year, I therefore concluded that in good conscience I could no longer continue to serve in this government under this Prime Minister. The decision has not been made lightly and was done so with a heavy heart. But my priority has and always will be the people of Stoke-on-Trent, North Kidgrove and Torque, who frankly deserve better. They frankly deserve better, said Jonathan Gullis yesterday. Today, it is clear Rishi Sunak has the overwhelming support of my parliamentary colleagues. So having spoken to Rishi, I have said I will back him so we can focus on the day job, standing up and delivering for the people of Stoke-on-Trent, North Kidgrove and Torque. So far so good, you'd think. Except yesterday he was still supporting Boris Johnson. And this morning he wrote, gutted Boris Johnson withdrew from the leadership contest. So in July, his constituents deserve better. In October, he's gutted that he's withdrawn from the leadership contest. I mean, do these people read their own contributions to public discourse? I believed in him and wanted him to come back as leader of the Conservatives. So in July, his constituents deserve better and he decided he could no longer serve in his government. By October, he believed in him and wanted him to come back as leader of the Conservatives. However, I now have some truly terrifying tidings for you because Jonathan Gullis's morning dispatch concludes with the following sentence. And I'm warning you now, this is horrible. I often comment on how low our country has come, how low we've been brought by Brexit and the confederacy of dunces that populate the Conservative Party as a consequence of that idiotic policy decision. But this is a new low. I almost hesitate to share it with you. This is Jonathan Gullis. On another note, today is my debut at the dispatch box in the House of Commons on Department for Education questions at 2:30 p.m. You remember when they made Nadine Dorries Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, and we thought that was, I mean, whatever you call the bit of barrel that is beneath the bottom of the bottom of the barrel. Like you've scraped the bottom of the barrel so much you've actually come out on the other side and you're now scraping soil off the floor beneath the barrel in the cellar. What's beneath the soil that's beneath the barrel at the bottom of the cellar? Jonathan Gullis at the dispatch box in the House of Commons, taking questions on Department for Education business. Holy McMoly. 11:39 is the time. Chris is in Cranley. Chris, what would you like to say?
Hello, good morning, James.
Hello,
yeah, that is distinctly depressing. Can I take a juvenile question, please?
Yes, carry on.
I think it's actually Boris Johnson himself and his negotiation with Penny Mordaunt. Because he's flown back from holiday, and remember the holiday started in July, not September, to save the UK from Liz Truss.
Yes.
And he knew he didn't have enough support when he got back, and clearly all the figures are fabricated, and he didn't hold all the cards. So he thought, what can I do? So he thought, I know what, I'll negotiate with Penny Mordaunt, because she can be barged out of the way. She's only got 20-odd votes. No respect for her position. I'll just, for my own benefit, I'll push her out of the way. forget you, and I'll get those 100. And
Probably.
then,
Do you think he thought he could charm her? Perhaps he thought he could charm her with his famous charm.
Absolutely, yeah. Or well, frankly, do whatever he needs to do to get her out of the way. All he needed to do is breach that 100. Then he knows that the party are going to vote for him. That's why I was so concerned that he was actually going to make it. And it sort of had a Brexit tinge to the way he negotiates.
If I say it's true, it will become true. If I say it's true, if I say I've got 102 nominations, I will have 102 nominations by the time they check.
Yeah, and also from a really weak position. He doesn't hold any leverage in this as well. And then, sorry, I'm rambling slightly, but
you're in good company.
And then his statement, I think last night, it was worded to imply that he was your 21st century Churchill figure has withdrawn and stepped down in glorious failure. What a hero. It's just the whole thing sums him up in the last few decades, not just the last 3 years.
I couldn't agree more. Except for one thing. And this will preclude him, I think, from taking the top spot on our Hall of Shame, in that this is the least surprising contender for the prize, isn't it? All he has done is act absolutely according to type, and absolutely as those of us paying attention could have predicted or would have expected. He is lying to the last, and it's other people who suffer the consequences of his lies. He'll probably be back on holiday by tomorrow.
Yeah. He will. You mentioned Boris 12.0. I think there's only one Boris.
Yeah.
It's Boris 1.0.
Yeah.